Today's show is brought to you by KegConnection.com. Check out the redesigned KegConnection.com and check out the brand new Brewers Club Rewards program. That's right, earn points with every purchase and get discounts and deals on future orders. Keg Connection also launched a brand new financing program so you don't have to wait to order the gear you want today. Go to KegConnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll get 5% off your order.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question that you would like discussed on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call them or text them in at 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep. I am your host, Joshua Stubing, and today I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com, Mr. James Carlson. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Handsome
I'm good.
James, as I'm the only one calling you that.
Yes, trust me, that's I don't hear that a lot.
I'm sorry, I like to make it awkward right from the beginning. I appreciate you, my friend, because you've joined me when Todd has abandoned us once again. I don't fault him, especially at a time like this, because he's doing things that are much more enjoyable than sitting in an office.
That's true. Yes,
he is out on the plains of Wyoming. If there are plains of Wyoming, or is he in the mountains of Wyoming? I don't know.
It's the plains, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's in that southern part where it's super windy.
And you know what was funny? He kept going on and on about how much colder it was going to be than here. And I've been following the weather, and it's been an average 5 to 10 degrees colder here than there.
No way. Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
That's hilarious. He thought he was getting... Well, no, he did get away from the cold then, by that logic. He got away from the cold to the warm tropical temperatures of Wyoming.
Yeah, he kept saying, "Oh, it's going to be it's going to be cold in Wyoming," and I've been following the weather. And I'm like, "This ain't fair.
This ain't even fair." Yeah.
He took the nice weather with him.
He did take the nice weather with him. Right now in Austin, we are flooding. It is very wet. There's a lot of rain going on. The surrounding area, Texas in general, though. Have y'all been getting a lot of rain up there? You're not that far from me.
It hasn't stopped raining since this last weekend. So,
oh man,
it's been on and off all day. I think I heard on the news yesterday that DFW Airport had recorded 10 inches of rain this last week.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that has to affect flights, right? Or do they just fly anyway? I don't
know. I think they have a pretty good irrigation or drainage for the airport. I haven't noticed anything.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't fly out of DFW, so I don't know. Austin, I don't believe, has had a whole lot of weather delays. But before we start our normal small talk, I did mention obviously Todd is gone hunting. You and I received. Was it yesterday or was it Tuesday?
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. We received a very good text. You have it on your phone. I have it on my phone. We can simultaneously look at that beautiful face of Todd Burns.
Look at that. He said the antelope is winning the battle, and he's got the scars to prove it.
Yes, Todd.
Wow.
I love that he sent us that. I read it differently. I didn't put two and two together. I'm kind of slow. But yeah, he put rough morning, antelope are winning. And then he has that beautiful face of his with blood splattered up from his nose. What do you I should have asked what happened. Let's just make up stories since he's not here to defend himself. I'd like to think he was killing one antelope, and then the mom antelope attacked him and beat him up, and he cried like a child in the fetal position, and they got away, and he didn't get anything. That's what I'd like to think happened, but I don't know.
I don't know. I've got a different take on that. Have you seen the movie Tommy Boy?
Oh, yes.
That's kind of what I think happened. The deer woke up, and he thought it was dead, and then and all hell broke loose, but I could be wrong.
You also just wanted to make a Farley reference to Todd. I'm not look. I'm not saying that they could be the same person, but I do have some. Todd being on vacation is fine. I'm glad that he's finally enjoying his days.
Yes.
Like how many years with the various entities and ventures he's doing did he not take a single day off at all? And so I'm happy for the guy.
I am too. He's needed this. It gives him time to decompress.
Exactly. Yeah, he decompress and gives his wife time for him to be away from her. So that's always a good thing.
For her time to decompress.
Yeah, Liz always appreciates that. I know for sure. Brew Days. I know that last time we talked, you were brewing that Chet Dark Lager. Did that go through? I didn't follow your Instagram.
It's in the conical right now. I'm doing the diacetyl rest right now. Gravity isn't where I want it to be. The last time I checked, it was about 1019. Mm-hmm. There's quite a bit of darker or crystal malt, and that can affect the final gravity, of course. But I was kind of hoping we'd be a little farther down. But yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna let it. When we go to Germany, when we come back from Germany, it should be ready to keg. So
that's gonna be wonderful. We can go experience the real deal, and then come back and still keep it going. The party will keep flowing, as I say.
We'll have a reference, actually, to how that should taste.
That's a good point. I mean, my palate's not very good, so it'll just be like, yes, this tastes like beer. Me and my dad brewed your Kolsch last weekend, and speaking of numbers, I just want to make this about myself. We hit, it was perfect, man.
Really?
Your recipe is, especially the true to style ones, are just down to a T. Like my pop, Brew Day was actually 2 weekends ago, pardon me. Very successful Brew Day. We, we brew the mini mash version, which I'm not going to say is like easy, but it's considerably more straightforward and great.
It is.
And as long as you can follow instructions and do things, you should be all right. And we hit our original gravity numbers on the dot. Like,
that's great.
It was. Yeah. And then my dad was worried because we had it in his that game room that you've seen before. You've been in there.
Oh, yeah. Great place.
The temperatures weren't as low in there as it should have been. But before racking to secondary, we took another gravity reading, and lo and behold, we hit our numbers again. Perfect.
Perfect. Like, that's so good to hear. Because when I put recipes together, that's my biggest fear.
Yep.
Because and I think that's probably number one complaint if somebody complains about a kit is, hey, this didn't hit gravity like you said. Are you cheating me on grains or fermentals or and it may not even be that, but that's wonderful to hear.
That's why I wanted to bring it up because I was going to text you and I was like, I know that I was hoping that you were going to do the podcast with me this week. So bring it up then because I know for you, like it's not just like it's not your job security why you worry. You genuinely want the brewers to have the best experience possible with and also because we attach your name to the recipes. So there's a lot on the line for you, man. Like,
I want to keep the trolls at bay,
Yeah, and fortunately they are. Like the only criticisms I ever get or we ever get that you ever get is really because whoever's in charge of the marketing messes up the instruction and does typos. I don't know who that guy is.
There was only, if you remember, when we rolled all that out, I had put together, counting all grain and mini mash, almost 50 recipes.
Yep.
So that's quite a bit of typos. And, I found myself kind of got into a rhythm putting those together, and that rhythm probably wasn't as good as I thought because there was quite a few typos.
Well,
one guy tore me up.
No, but I was, you say tore you up or didn't do any corrections and now is getting all the corrections sent to him and is having to have some accountability, and it makes me feel bad. But I mean, whoever that guy is, I'm just, whoever he is. So we're about to actually brew again this coming Sunday. We're going to brew a chocolate stout. Cool. The melt stout, your melt stout recipe. It's not a true to style, but we're brewing it because it was one of the recipes that would be maybe not ideal, but would be ready by Thanksgiving. I wanted to ask you before we got into today's episode, today being October the 19th, what are there any recipes you would recommend to someone listening right now who they could brew? Today is Friday, they could brew this weekend, and they would have it done and finished by as early as Thanksgiving?
I would say definitely that would be one of them. The chocolate stout as well. Anything that is on the darker side, because that kind of coincides with the weather and temperature and, just a winter warmer. And there's quite a few impressive recipes on Homebrew Supply as well. So
it's
anything
not too late is what you're saying.
No, no, it's good. It's an ale. So, if we had a I've been playing around with the idea of putting out a winter warmer, like a holiday a lager recipe.
Please.
But I haven't really. My problem is when I get down to put the recipe together, my mind kind of walks in all different directions, and it doesn't ever get. I don't get as much done as I would hope.
Now you're just describing my day to day. That last part, I don't get as much done as I'd hoped.
Yeah,
but yeah, we get a lot of questions just through messaging of people like, "Oh, I want a good beer for whatever holiday," and that's why I was asking, because I don't want to. I mean, I know the answer more or less. Like, I'm not that bad at knowing what to recommend, but I do sometimes struggle with not wanting to, or being afraid, like, if I tell them that it really needs sit sweets, or like the alt. Like, would you tell someone? I mean, alt is an ale, but would you tell someone like, yeah, you could brew an alt now and it'll be ideal by Thanksgiving?
No,
that's what I mean. Exactly. Yeah.
Because the one thing about, I will say this, and we've talked about this before, is alt beer is probably, in my opinion, one of the hardest beers to brew. It's so delicate in its flavor profile, and it requires patience from the brewer. So you've got to not only get that recipe and mash it at the right temps if you're doing all grain. It's a little easier to do if you're doing extract, because the DME and the steeping grains makes it a lot simpler. But if you're doing all grain, you better hit those temps where they need to be, and then let it time to mellow out. And that's 6 weeks.
Exactly.
Minimum.
Someone wrote in on maybe Homebrew Happy Hours Facebook. It was a post about the alt, and it was a guy just asking like, I'm thinking about trying it, but I don't want to spend the money unless it really is that good. And I'm glad that you mentioned that it is that good when you are patient. That's the word. I was gonna say on your game. Patience, the much better way to say it, because you don't have to be. Me and my dad doing the mini mash, like you said, follow the instructions, have patience, do what you are supposed to do in regards to temperature, cold crash, and all that, and you're gonna have a very good end result. I'm confident, because of the hard work Mr. James Carlson has done on the back end for the recipes and whatnot. But enough buttering you up. One more thing, you are leaving. So Todd has abandoned me this week. You're abandoning us next week, Mr. Carlson. You're going to be in not Orlando. Where is it? It's in Florida.
Brooksville, Florida, is where it is. It's about 20 miles or so from Tampa.
Okay, and it's not a vacation. You're not getting your beach body ready for bikini seasons in like 9 months.
Nobody wants to see me.
Nobody wants to. James, you're too humble. You are heading down to do the Micromatic. You got to explain it to me. I forget the course.
It's the drafting school that Micromatic offers, and it teaches you how to do long and short draw systems in regards to dispensing beer. So that was one of the things that Todd had mentioned several times, and we finally were able to get it done. So yeah, it's going to be 3 days of pretty intensive.
Very. Todd did it, I want to say back in 2009 is when I remember him going down there. It's been a while. He did. I don't even know if the certification. Wow, that was way harder for me to say than it should have been. I don't know if it has a time like expiration, or if you have to.
I don't think so. I don't think that'd be the kind of thing you'd have continuing education on. But he's very knowledgeable in draft dispensing.
Yeah,
and he should be, because he owns Keg Connection.
Yeah, it's part of his business. That's sort of his shtick. But we will miss you next week. I'll have to find. Maybe I'll interview someone else, because me and Todd alone, we're not going to get anything done, man. It's going to be rough. Okay.
Oh, sure you will.
Oh, yeah. Well, on topic, we'll see. All right. We have a couple of questions for the show today, James. So let's start with question number 1. Comes from William at the submit a question form on homebrewhappyhour.com. William writes, I moved to all grain brewing a while back. I sometimes purchase grain at a supply store where I can crush my grain when I purchase. However, I sometimes take advantage of online shopping and may purchase enough for several batches to either take advantage of a special offer and or minimize shipping costs per batch. When I do this, I must choose whole or crushed grains. Recently, I ordered whole grains and ground them, not roller crushed, with a hand mill grinder. My biggest fear was a stuck sparge, but had no problems. Are there any other concerns with grinding versus crushing grains? I included this question for a few reasons. One, it is a good question that we haven't really addressed. But 2, there's a whole labyrinth of breakaways I can take from it that I will once we address his initial thing. So, James, what are the concerns with grinding versus crushing grains?
Well, I think you addressed the first thing would be stuck sparge. So that means that when you're grinding the grains, you're grinding the hulls too.
Mm-hmm.
So the hulls acts as kind of a filter. It gives space between the starch. So a stuck mash is basically, it kind of gloms together and it won't let liquid pass through.
Right.
And so when you crush them when you grind them and not crush them, you get those hulls are actually crushed and ground into little smaller pieces. So that is absolutely a problem. I would go a higher grain to water ratio if you're going to do that. Another thing could be tannins in the hulls as well. You're grinding those up too. But I would, just like we always say, if you've had success doing brewing a certain way, then that doesn't make it bad at all. So if you've had good luck, I've never ground grains, I've always crushed them. So if he's had success doing that, then he needs to put it on a post, go into homebrewtalk.com or Reddit and say, this is what I did, this is what I experienced. So maybe that is not as big a deal as it is. But I personally would not grind grains. I would roll them.
Well, and I was going to ask my first little breakaway, which is, believe it or not, actually on topic to the question. Is that something that you could experiment with for a different end result, or would it not? I mean, you're talking about the potential in the starch and the tannin. It is the method of getting the grains not being whole, whether you're grinding or crushing them, is that going to also change the end result of your beer?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that would go up would be efficiency.
Okay.
So because of the fact that if, as you're well aware, we've got a commercial grinder for homebrew supply, and it's really odd looking grinder. It's smooth rollers with grooves machined in them. So what happens is it grabs the grains, parts of some of the grain kernels get in those grooves and they don't get crushed. So but I haven't seen a difference in efficiency versus gravity and a regular roller, a knurled roller versus a slotted roller. So there you go. You looking at that after you crush the grains, you would think, well, that efficiency is going to go way down because it looks like there's a bunch that aren't crushed.
Right.
But that hasn't been the case. And so sometimes we get wrapped up with what not to do, that maybe sometimes it prevents us from trying something different. As this clearly he says he hasn't had any problems. So,
I was going to say, I'm no stranger to just doing whatever I want to do and not worrying about. But I wonder that. I also wonder, this is still kind of on topic. We talked about it before recording. You have a freezer, James Carlson, full of grains that you've picked up, that you've acquired, that you've saved. People who buy in bulk to save money on shipping or whatever, is there, as long as you take proper storage, like for you, the freezer, is there any problem in people or a club taking advantage of some bulk buy, even if they know they're not going to use the grains in the immediate future?
No, but I would freeze it for ultimate storage. Go down to the local Big Lot store or whatever, big box store, and you can get those small freezers for what, $100?
Oh, yeah, a good enough size one, yeah.
Yeah, that'll hold 100, 150 pounds of grain easy. And it'll keep it safe, keep it from rodents. Rodents love the malt.
They do.
So you want to keep it out of you wouldn't want to store it in a barn or a garage or somewhere where the temperature fluctuates. You want it in a cool, temperature-controlled, dry area. And the best place is a freezer.
And I was going to say, the freezer definitely ensures the integrity, from what I know, of the grains from whenever you are then ready to use them, right?
Yep. And what I usually do, because the grains, the endosperm or the center of the starches in the grain, they freeze too. So I have learned to set it out. I've got a big plastic container that I got at Walmart, and I will put the batch. I'll go ahead and pre-measure the grain out, put it in there, and let it set room temp overnight, and it crushes just fine. But if you try to crush it cold,
what is the method? Is it Disney who got like cryogenically frozen? That's what you're doing to the grains. You're freezing them in an instance. And so that way you're not losing any of what you're trying to get out of the grains when it's time to brew. Because again, I know people like me specifically, I won't just throw people broadly under the bus. I like deals. I'm a sucker for a deal. And if
I am too.
When I start all grain brewing with my dad, I can just already see it. Well, maybe you know what? I don't want to lie. I'm going to be different because I have a special access to grain. So I might be different, but I am the type of person though, who would definitely not be a stranger to spending whatever I had to save the most amount of money, and then hoping that the stuff just doesn't go bad because there's no way I'm going to use it, in the immediate. But I know a lot of listeners do that too, where like there are some bulk buy deals that you can get. And I guess what I'm getting at is, as long as you have ideally a freezer to store them in, you should be good to go on those grains.
I think you'd be perfect. Take advantage of those 2-row specials that your local homebrew shop may have. I know a buddy of mine, Brandon, he's a good, he loves the show. He'd be the guy to go pick up him or either Todd would pick up the grain in Austin, and we would get 200 pounds at a time.
Oh, that's
because
right.
If you bought it in a 55-pound sack, you got it for like, I could be wrong, but I want to say it was less than 50 cents a pound.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, bulk buying tends to be the best buying with anything, right? With most industries, bulk buying, you save the most money. Now, my wife goes to Sam's Club and comes back with 150 things of ketchup.
Look at what I say.
Yeah. Now, Todd Burns, it's funny I said ketchup. That's a Todd Burns thing. If I've ever made a inside joke, he would appreciate. He's like, what's wrong with 150 containers of ketchup, Josh? I go through that weekly. But William, thank you so much. This is a good time too, before we get to the second question, for me to remind people, when we take your question on air, which of course we'll do because you're submitting wonderful questions, we give you now a $25 gift certificate to kegconnection.com or homebrewsupply.com, depending on which one's sponsoring that episode, which today is kegconnection.com. So William, I think I already emailed you. If I didn't, I need to find a scapegoat, James. Dan Carlin at Hardcore History has Ben, like he always blames Ben. And I'm starting to think Ben is him. And it's not any.
Here it is.
And so I need that as well. Actually, we have that guy. We have Devin, who is a real person. I just use his name. He doesn't listen to this show.
No, go ahead. Devin or Jacob or
any of the young guns there who actually respect me and think I'm a professional. But yeah, submit your question, friends, and we're going to reward you because we really do appreciate you listening and interacting with us. Moving on, question number 2 comes from Matthew, using the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Matthew writes, "Hey fellas, I have been listening to your show since the beginning and really enjoy the conversations you have. You've mentioned brewing books in the past, but I was wondering if there is any part of homebrewing that you're currently trying or planning on trying to improve or learn more about. What books or podcasts or websites are you using for this? Thanks for taking my question." James, I'll start it real quick.
Sure.
This isn't necessarily for me, but I have noticed the fad right now in home brewing, the focal point seems to be water. Water profiles seems to be pretty popular. I don't know if you're noticing that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
RO water. I know homebrewsupply.com's Learning Center has some new articles coming out about, I think there's some new RO system that just got to market and like using it because, again, demand to or response to demand, a lot more brewers are paying more attention to their water profiles. What are you, James? What are you specifically right now maybe focusing on or trying to hone or learn more about?
Me, I would say the whole. Gosh, that's a hard question because
it's loaded. I know.
I'm a German lager kind of guy, so I want to be able to perfect any German beer that I brew, including lagers, and that would include yeast.
Right.
And I think that as a lot of people will find out, when you're dealing with lagers, you're dealing with a lot more yeast.
Right.
So I would like to get to a point, and I can't say this enough. Imperial makes, in my opinion, the best product out there.
And you're not paid to say that. I have to clarify. We are not sponsored by them or nothing.
Why would you be knowing that a lager requires more yeast than an ale, why would you buy a product that's half of what you could get with Imperial?
Yeah,
And that's the bottom line.
No,
so
I'm
if
with
you're
you.
if you're gonna pitch a product that's, that's why it's truly pitchable for a batch of beer. It's 200 billion sales versus a lot of yeast companies. It's 100.
Yeah.
So but I'm kind of trailing off. Brewing a good lager, it's such a delicate beer, especially like a Pilsner,
Yeah.
or a Marzen, to where it's got a light flavor profile, so everything shines through. So you are right. Water is a big deal about it too, but if you don't pitch the right amount of yeast, it can also create off flavors as well. So I'm going to focus more on yeast and starters and growing for pitchable bigger batches, because we have a big system and we're lucky at that, having the ability to do 15 plus gallons of beer.
Right.
The other problem because of that is we have to propagate a lot of yeast, or we just get a lot of packs of Imperial yeast when we do a batch of beer.
Oh, and that was my favorite part of the Owen interview there at Imperial, because you were talking about we all, you, me, and Todd were interviewing him and talking about yeast numbers and this or that, and like what would we do when we're scaling up and like to propagate more. And remember, he just kind of laughed it off like, no, you just
tell me how much you need and I'll send it.
Yeah, I'll just give you the packets that are necessary.
Right.
I was like,
well, it's such a big deal, water and yeast. But when I first started brewing beer, it was like, I'm just gonna throw this batch together. I never thought about yeast. I never thought about water, and that was probably because that's probably the reason why my beer was so bad when I first started. So I'm a purist. So if I'm going to brew a Pils, is the way they call it, the way they say it in Germany, I want it to be as accurate as it can possibly be. My goal is, if I'm going to brew a German beer, I want it to taste exactly like what you could get over there.
That's why I love you, because authenticity is at your core for your recipes. And that's why my wife says I'm lazy. I use Efficient. I don't have to worry about making my own recipes, because James Carlson comes out like I said, we brewed your Kolsch. Woo-wee. It is clear as day before even going to secondary. The taste of it, obviously pre-secondary and pre-carbonated. I was like, oh yeah, we're going down the right path, my friend. And
if you can drink it out of the fermenter, that's the cool thing about the Conicals. We can cold crash what's in there,
Oh yeah.
And we pulled some. I did what I would call a dry Kolsch. Did a little different deal. I don't know if you've tried it yet.
I did.
It's
wonderful.
It's a lot drier. It's a little hoppier than I usually like, so I'll back off my problem is I can't leave anything alone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tweak it, but that's also a fault, because I'm such a purist. You wouldn't catch me dry hopping a lager, just because I'm trying to get that
shots were fired at Joe just now.
Well, I mean, this is no mystery. I mean, y'all all know my feelings on that, but I hate that sometimes, because he happened to produce a pretty good beer.
It was a very solid lager. Is there any left? Because I'm coming up Monday, and
I don't know. He didn't give me any, so.
That's what y'all share alike. I know you're very generous, but I do see sometimes the look of regret when I leave with the keg of your beer. Like, son of a gun, why did I give him a whole?
Oh no,
he should have had
he
should have had a growler.
It's exact opposite.
I know.
I look at it this way: if somebody's wanting a keg of my beer, then that must mean it tastes all right.
Oh yeah, I've tried to hire you,
I'm
James.
Giving it to you, and you go, that's all right. Just leave it here. That's usually a sign that I'm being nice and don't like it.
And you should know, as much as I joke about I'll drink anything, that's not actually true. What was the beer that
Roggen beer?
Your Roggen beer.
Oh, it's terrible.
That was one. If you would have offered me the keg, I would have been like, you know what, James, let's just keep it here. The break room. It worked out good here. Because Matthew did ask about certain things like podcasts and all that. Obviously, this is the show you got to listen to, friends. But joking aside, Brad Smith's Beersmith podcast. If you had asked me to pick another show that would be my favorite in this realm of brewing, he's my go-to. It's very consumable. It's about a 40-minute show. He always gets the good guest, and his voice is made for radio. That guy has the best podcast voice in the world.
You see him when I told him that at Homebrew Con?
No, I didn't know you talked to him. Really?
Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, he come up.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And I said, you know what? You absolutely have the perfect voice for that podcast.
Was it as awkward?
I get that all the time.
Yeah. Oh, does he? Okay. He handled it better than like when I call you Handsome James. He's podcast Brad, but his voice really, it is the best. And his video production stuff too is decent. He's not ugly, so it works out. He's probably in his late 50s, right?
Yeah, I would say so. He comes across as a very organized person.
Absolutely. If y'all were to replace me, I would hope it'd be with Brad. The show would be more on topic. Y'all would get a lot more answers, and the listeners.
I don't know about that, but
I'm like that.
A little levity makes the podcast a lot more likable.
I'm like what my mom told my date at prom. He has a good personality. I do want to also mention though. I am legitimately trying to get my taste better, meaning I want to put more focus, and I've been working on it this year, and 2019 is going to be a real formidable year for me. I don't know if I'm going to try to get officially like certified at some degree, either like Cicerone program or judging or whatever, but I want my taste to be more refined. Randy Mosher is one of my favorite personalities in the industry because he's very straightforward, he's very approachable, and he gave me the time of day at HomebrewCon in Baltimore. And so now I've just been a fanboy of his, and I ran into him at the airport when we were leaving that Baltimore one. And so I have to give a shout out. But his book, Tasting Beer, I think the second edition is the latest one. That is a book I would highly recommend if taste matters to you. In regards to like knowing why you're enjoying the beer, like not to be a snob, beer culture tends to be polarizing sometimes. James, you might agree.
Oh yeah.
There are unfortunately people, not just in home brewing, but in craft beer at large, there are people who will judge you for drinking that Lone Star. And
all beer is good.
Yeah, if you enjoy it, drink it. I don't care. Like I have family that enjoy certain commercial beers that you would never find me drinking, but it's not because they're commercial is why I'm not drinking them. I don't enjoy them. I don't enjoy Budweiser. I don't enjoy Miller Lite. Every now and then Lone Star is appropriate in certain situations for me, like a hot day at a water park or something. Lone Star is fantastic. I'm not going to knock it, but what I was getting at though is polarizing, because don't let people who put their nose down on you like, oh, what are you drinking? I brought this very obscure microbrew, limited edition, whatever. This is what we're drinking tonight. Be thankful that they had that access, but you should drink what you enjoy. But I'm digressing. What I'm getting at is I want my palate to just be more refined for my sake, because when people, especially at like HomebrewCon, they're not snobby at all, but people will go.
They are not. I will say that.
Yeah, they're not snobby at all. But what I am envious of is when they'll try like your beer or they'll try Joe's beer like this last year, and they'll tell you the notes that they're tasting, and you'll go, exactly. Like with Joe, they're telling him that, you use this hop and this, where I'm tasting it like, I think I'm getting buzzed. Like that's what I like.
Yeah, it's hoppy.
It's hoppy. Mango and this and that. And Joe's like, yeah, that was from this hop and this hop. And I'm like, son of a gun, I want that. and again, not like as a party trick, but because it makes the experience, in my opinion, that much more enjoyable, because you know why you're enjoying the beer beyond just it's hitting some receptors in my brain, right?
Right. And I would also say this: make it your own, and don't let anybody tell you any other. Just like we were just talking about lagers, and Joe is passionate about. He loves hops. I mean, that's his thing. He loves hops, and he utilizes it wonderful in beers.
Yes,
and that's a skill. So you find something you like about homebrewing and make it your own.
I think that's the best wrap-up point now, because you're absolutely right. That encompasses it all. Whatever it is you're trying to do with homebrew, just make it your own and keep doing it while it's enjoyable, or only do what is enjoyable. That's what I meant to say.
Sure.
Homebrewing should not be laborious in regards to you're tired of it or you're burned out. Or, I've gotten feedback before on my business idea that, I want to open up a brewery or a brew pub, and all we're going to brew is alt and Kolsch, and it's going to be great. And people are like, no, you'll get burned out. And to me, in my small little limited thinking, I'm like, no, I'll never get burned out. Those styles.
Well, look at it this way. there's thousands of people that do that over in Europe.
I know. And look at my shirt.
We've seen a working model.
You see my shirt I'm wearing today? Ooh, Schlussel.
That's one of my favorites.
James, and I thought that because it was your favorite, I was just going to have that kind of fanboyism already. Like not necessarily supported by evidence, but just because, I idolize you with brewing. And I know, I'm buttering you up. It's just you and me. I legitimately, Schlussel is heaven on earth.
Best beer. And Fuchsen is good too, but
they're all good. They're all different. Schumacher, like if I have a mood, like when you're talking about your Kolsch, the dry one that you brewed, it reminded me that I'm in a mood for Kolsch and alt, but sometimes I'm in more of a mood for a drier version or not. And I liked that in Germany, in that little alt Stadt of Dusseldorf, you can get whatever alt you want, and they're all delicious. Like Schlussel is more like malty, I would say, of the bunch.
It is, definitely.
It's like right now with the temperatures being, I almost made a joke and wore like my mountain climbing type jackets and stuff because it's like 50 right now in Texas and everyone's freaking out. I have enough body hair for where I can last till it's like below 50. But I love that. Alt right now would be a perfect style for me to enjoy. The Schlussel kind, or if it's with the cigar, maybe I want it more dry. Schumacher was a perfect solution for that.
That's a good analogy because that last Kolsch that I did, I pushed the volume and I did over 18 gallons of that stuff. And that's a good analogy. So compared to my normal Kolsch, it's more like that. It's drier. It's almost spicier tasting.
Exactly. And Todd and I, you gave him a keg of it, or he got a keg of it of the Kolsch, and it went very well with the cigar I had that night. It was a Romeo and Julieta, and it was
different. You have to admit it was,
but in a good way, and different isn't bad. Especially, like I said, with Kolsch and alt, I've yet to have one. And listeners, if you want to challenge me, send in your Kolsch or alt.
There you go.
I have yet to have a bad version of either one, legitimately, homebrewed or not. I've had a beer where they claimed it was an alt, and it was definitely a porter, and you know what I'm talking about.
I was there that day.
We were there together, and I won't name names, but I would not say that was an alt. You can't just call things alt and then have me judge it accordingly. That was not an alt. It was not a Dusseldorf alt, at least. It was a Central Texas alt. But anyways, I think that's a good wrap up point. Matthew, thank you for submitting the question. James, again, my friend, thank you so much.
I'm proud to be here.
I am gonna miss you next week, but I look forward to recapping what you learn. And as nerdy as it might be, because it's all like technical information stuff, I cannot wait for you to get back.
But you know what? When I get back, we have have a little less than 10 days.
Oh man, my nerves are flying. Not like bad nerves, but like happy, anxious. My wife doesn't listen to the show, so I can talk very candidly that I cannot wait to go on that trip. Not because I'm trying to get away from anything. My kids are wonderful. They're probably going to be stand-up people at some point in their life, but I cannot wait to get back over to Germany, Nuremberg, the Brow. Never been. Yeah. You and I both have never been.
Never been.
Biggest.
We're going to Prague.
Then going to Prague. I can't. I'm going to start twitching in excitement. But I can't wait. I will catch up with you later, my friend. Talk to you soon.
See y'all.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, visit homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now, guys, you can call them in by dialing 325-305-6107 and leave your message after the beep, or you can send us a text message to that same one. Keep your text messages appropriate, friends. Thank you to our show sponsor, KetConnection.com, for supporting our podcast and the homebrewing community. Go to KetConnection.com, use the promo code HHH, and you'll receive 5% off your order. On behalf of the absent and bruised Todd Burns, the present James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.